(4,331 days, if I've counted correctly, is how long India has gone without losing a test series at home. The last time they lost was, of course, in 2012 against England. And although we knew that this day would come, Ayaz, you still feel bad as an Indian fan. So right off the bat, no technical questions. I just want to know how you're feeling right now.
I'm feeling pretty bad actually. But the thing is, I thought that after 18 series wins on the trot, there is always the issue or the question of the law of averages catching up with you. So that can happen. But what, in a sense, bothers me is that the way we lost the first test match, I thought we should have been on our guard. Can't take this New Zealand team lightly because they upstaged us in the first test in all departments. And that is exactly what they did in the second test match. In the first test match through pace bowling and the batting, in the second test match through spin bowling and the batting, and obviously backed up by fantastic fielding, which the New Zealanders are always known for. So I think somewhere, I think as they say in cricketing parlance, India just kind of took their eyes off the ball. 46 bowled out in the first innings in the first test match, collapsed again in the second innings of that same test match, then collapsed again in the first innings of this test match. May not have been as dramatic as being 46 all out, but it was still a very kind of a unexpected collapse, and which actually cost India very dearly, because here India had also lost the toss, so they had to bat last. It was, I thought, in a sense, I mean, there's one way of looking at it, that this is a rude awakening call for India, that you are no longer invincible at home, you have to be on your guard all the time. But let's not take any credit away from New Zealand, Anirudh. I thought they've been absolutely superb. Nobody thought when they came here that they would even have a good give a good fight to India, because they had just lost 2 matches to Sri Lanka and come here. They were without Kane Williamson. They just had a change in the captaincy and so on. But they've just come across as such a wonderful, well-knit team, and with all bases covered.
Yeah. So which brings me to the Indian batting. So you talked about the collapses. Now, these are batters who are supposed to know these conditions and in fact excel in these conditions. But of course, you said the toss was a crucial decision. But still, you expect these sort of batsmen who've had like massive runs in domestic cricket, especially Sarfaraz and people like Jaiswal and all. But you saw the New Zealand batsmen, especially in the second innings, they were using their feet coming down, they were sweeping, reverse sweeping, they were trying to throw the bowlers off their length. So what then happened to India's famed batting lineup?
It bombed, they flopped. I thought that they batted poorly in the first innings of the second test match. I mean, 3 of their main players, Virat Kohli, Rishabh Pant and Sarfaraz Khan, actually playing quite atrocious shots. Sometimes there is a lingering effect of T20 cricket or the white ball format, whichever one you want to call it, whichever one, ODIs or T20, and all 3 got out to strokes which you wouldn't expect in a test match, especially when the team is struggling. Now I know that the pace and tempo and momentum of test cricket has also changed dramatically, but sometimes you have to give you have to be prudent. And I thought that chasing 259 first innings score of New Zealand, the only way on this pitch India could have actually come out on top was to bat only once, which meant that they had to make about 400, 425. And that was never going to be likely if you play those kind of strokes. And that is what it came down to. I mean, you lost, you got bowled out for very little, gave a lead of 103, which was a match-winning lead. And then New Zealand showed in the third innings how one can bat on this pitch against more reputed spinners, players who've been bowling also on these kind of tracks for all their lives. I thought Tom Latham played a superb knock as a captain, and supported by a lot of other innings of some substance, but of great consequence as it turned out. And then we had chasing 350, 359. I think was always going to be a tough call. I mean, Jaiswal gave us some glimmer of hope because he just kept such a rapid momentum of attack on the bowlers. But the die was always cast on this pitch. You get a couple of wickets to fall, and then everything starts getting exposed, which is what happened with the Indian batting.
Yeah, which brings me to our neighbor Pakistan. I'd like to take you there for a moment. They've scripted a remarkable comeback in the series after losing the first test against England. They've now won 2-1. And after that first test, they had dropped Babar Azam, Shaheen Shah Afridi and Naseem Shah, which was controversial. set tongues wagging at the time, but turned out to be the right call. You got these two spinners, Sajid Khan and Oman Ali, coming out of out of nowhere essentially, and becoming the stealing the show in both the matches with the ball, and chipped in with the bat too. So, do you think, controversial question, do you think there's a lesson for India to be learned there?
I think there's a lesson for all teams. I mean, I'll tell you what the big lesson is that, however, we've been exulting over baseball, the fact remains that, baseball works when the pitch is playing well and there's not much pressure from the pitch, so to speak, or the conditions on the batters. But we saw baseball come unstuck against India. Having won the first test match, they bombed in the next four. And this is what has happened to them here. They scored 800 runs against Pakistan in the first test match and then got bamboozled in the next two because they just did not have the batting, just did not have the technical aptitude to play spinners on turning tracks. So preparation, I just read a fantastic tweet by the former England wicketkeeper Jack Russell, who says that the best way to learn to play on spinning tracks is to play on spinning tracks in your own country. And now that there is the 100 being played there, August and September is given away to white ball cricket, where the pitches are going to turn. They're used pitches. The whole season has been played on them, and therefore the batters are just not equipped to play that kind of cricket. And then you throw them into Pakistan, where I think Pakistan actually wised up in their selection policy. They didn't go for the big names. They went for guys who've been doing really well in domestic cricket. Oman Ali and Numan Ali and Sajid Khan. They brought them into Test cricket and got the results. So there's a lesson to be learned from how England didn't prepare well, and obviously there's a lesson to be learned for India from New Zealand that you can't take it for granted that we've got the batters. A lot of these guys, including Sarfraz Khan, has come off a fantastic domestic season. He's made 150 in the first Test match, but before that he's made a double hundred in a Duleep Trophy. So all amongst the runs, but you can't. And remember, overseas teams now, the players when they come here, almost 7, 8, 9 of these New Zealand players play the IPL, play constantly against Indian players on Indian pitches in Indian conditions. So they are obviously also learning and acquiring and assimilating skills which they can use later. So I think that's something one has to keep in mind, the Indian think tank and selectors and whoever else, captains, that it's not a cakewalk as it used to be in the past.
Yeah, so lastly, now we've been discussing that this is kind of an aging team, especially with the likes of Kohli, Rohit, Jadeja and Ashwin in their mid to late 30s, and now with Kohli and Rohit's form also in question. So do you think if India keep this team, there could be a drubbing coming their way in Australia, or do you think this is just an aberration and something that had to happen?
No, I think we have to de-link the Australian series. It's not the best preparation. We've lost two, so obviously India's attempt should be now, or aim should be to win the third Test match in Mumbai. You want to go to Australia with a win, behind you. And remember, it's also WTC points. So it's been a bit of a jolt for India to lose two Test matches on the trot in India. Very rarely does this happen, as we know. So they've lost a series, they've lost two matches, they've got a setback in the WTC points, they need to win the third Test match. What will happen in Australia? Look, the selectors, the captain, the coach have put their faith in the same kind of, the assembly of players that we've seen in this match or in this series, which is fair. I mean, apart from the fact that Shami is not fit, I think more or less everybody who you expect to be playing from India in Australia is there. Yes, 4-5 of these players are nearing the end, or maybe they're not in the winter of their careers, they are certainly past autumn. Guys like Ashwin, Jadeja, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli. So there's a lot at stake for them, but also there's the thrill and the excitement of seeing young players like Yashasvi Jaiswal, Rishabh Pant, Shubman Gill, and so on going to Australia. I mean, this could be a tour for them to reach the upper echelons of cricket. So I'm not, I'm not pessimistic about India's prospects in Australia, but I think they need to be realistic, and now they need to prepare well. Australia will feed on this adverse result for India. They will be far more confident when they take on India. But India have got history behind them, recent history. They won 2 series on the trot against Australia, and that is something that they must, obviously they cherish, but that is something that they must carry with them, that kind of confidence and that optimism that they can beat Australia and make their participation in the final of the WTC beyond any doubt.
Yeah, so as you said earlier, now India head to Mumbai for their last match, and they're not just playing for pride, they're playing for actual WTC points and hoping to get into the third final. So we'll get back to you before that match. So that's it for this episode of Sports Room. We'll see you next time.